Welcome to Chatsunami, a Scottish variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests. Join me, your host, Satsunami, as well as the rest of our Chatsunami team for our takes on these very important pop culture topics.
Sir, it's clearly a trap. I accept your fate!
That happens 3 times in the film. Like, every time that general goes, don't do this one thing, he goes, do you know what I'm gonna do? That's the exact
It does as well. She had the pointy teeth. What was that about?
She looked like Bilbo when he wants the ring back.
She did, didn't she? I just want the lightsaber one more time.
Parasite says, no, you will get back into your office and work.
No, says the man in Zoom. Trousers are for the working man.
You're bursting into your hotel room. Honey, we need to go.
Leave the kids. You can milk an oddish. Oh!
That's the worst thing you've ever said in any of the episodes.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out at our website, chatsunami.com, as well as all good podcast apps. As always, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated.
Stay classy and have a banana. This has been Satsunami.
I'm sorry. It's safe to say that ever since the rise of the internet, I have been fascinated by the implications that it could have in everyday life. There was once a time of separation between digital and physical, where people would sign off with a TTYL after a hard day of using dial-up internet and praying that a surprise phone call wouldn't sever their connection to the digital realm. It was an age of exploration and wonder, with many people all over the world coming together to share ideas. While it may not have been entirely as idyllic as I'm making it out to be, it was certainly a new age for humanity. Unfortunately, as time went on, so too did the evolution of the internet. From cat pictures and memes to mayhem and trolling, we've seen many people devote their lives into this space. What began as a forum where we were told as children not to give out our full details, to now people sharing their lives 24/7 through something like a live stream. We have somewhat become addicted to crafting our own personas within the internet, myself included of course with the moniker Satsunami for the podcast. It's hard to remember a time when the internet wasn't as prevalent, but with the rise of corporations using dystopian sci-fi films of the 90s as a blueprint for rampant advertising, the common internet user has forged unforgettable relationships that previously wouldn't have been possible. During my time at university, I actually wrote a dissertation called God vs Gigabytes on the implication of Christianity on the internet and how back in the 2010s there was a surprising shift into using technology as a way to explore faith through sites like Second Life without leaving the comfort of one's home. It was so interesting to me that people would take something as important as faith and move it somewhere that many considered to not be as valid due to the fact that it wasn't physically real. We've all heard someone say something similar before, mainly from older generations demanding that you get off their dang lawn. The thought of others not only living but thriving in the digital space is a foreign concept to them. Around the same time, I took my first foray into the world of writing and self-published a book called Canvas. Much like a lot of media that I enjoyed at the time, the plot centred around Earth succumbing to a plethora of natural disasters and hardships, forcing humanity to start anew in a digital world called Canvas. It was supposed to be a utopia for those who entered, but unfortunately the characters would have to deal with the philosophical conundrum of what truly made a human human. Does one forgo this when they're uploaded into a digital space? Is the mind more significant than matter? And would the mistakes caused by human nature resurface here? Of course, I'm not the first nor the last to have thought of these questions. After all, various media such as The Matrix, Black Mirror, and even Pantheon deal with the concepts of life within a digital realm. From a lesser standpoint, I still remember a time on the internet where people created original characters, or OCs for short, and pretended to be them through the medium of roleplay. While not as extreme as the media I just mentioned, It is interesting how even nowadays, not only does this still continue, but people live vicariously through their OCs. One of the latest mediums over the past few decades to explore this topic as well has been video games. As a gamer myself, I've had the chance to explore the realms of virtual reality, an experience that, while not seamless compared to real life, is certainly blurring the lines. Even some companies like Meta have tried creating virtual workspaces for companies to work together in, but somehow I think that if we're still yelling, "You're on mute," in 2025, then there's no way we'll be running around with headsets on to discuss daily quotas. Recently, with my disillusionment of the current gaming landscape, I've been playing several critically acclaimed games that I must woefully admit I failed to play during their initial release. One such example was the hit indie title To the Moon, where you play as scientists whose job it is to go into the minds of their patients while they are on their deathbeds to alter their memories. While on the surface this is presented as a bittersweet end to one's life, one could also pose the question of how much they're truly affecting the life of their clients. While their memories are altered, nothing around them has really changed. So with that being said, are these characters actually changing someone's life? Or are they changing the life of the person we are within our own minds? This game has sat with me for a long time, and while we discussed this in length around season 2 of the podcast, it has led me down a rabbit hole of playing games using the medium of gameplay as a way to tell challenging and thought-provoking stories. While this again is a topic that could be its own episode, one such game that caught my attention was the title SOMA. Developed and published by Frictional Games in 2015, SOMA is a survival horror game that joins a long lineage of horror titles developed by the same studio that made Penumbra and the Amnesia series. You can definitely see a lot of similarities between them within the gameplay, but this is something we'll discuss later. The story itself primarily takes place in an underwater research centre known as Pathos 2, around the year 2104. As you explore the facility further, you start to truly question what defines the concept of being human, especially in a time period so far removed from our own. Going further into the facility threw me back to that time in my life, where I would ponder what the future would look like with technology becoming ever present. And while we may not have flying cars, utopian cities, and interstellar travel, I mean, at least we have, yeah, maybe let's answer that one later. But that aside, SOMA does raise some very valid and interesting questions. Does humanity begin and end with our own mortal body? Or is it our mind that defines who we truly are as a species? Well, I couldn't think of a better topic for Spooky Month after Resident Evil Month. Without any further ado and spoilers ahead, let's put on our diving suits and dive into what makes SOMA an existential horror masterpiece 10 years on. Welcome to Chatsunami. Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. Philip K. Dick. Not only does the game start with this quote, but it provides a haunting piece of foreshadowing for the story we are about to embark on. The game begins with our protagonist Simon Jarrett, who back in 2015 sustained significant brain damage after being in a car accident. As a last-ditch effort, Simon puts his faith in PhD hopeful David Munshi, who is working on an experimental brain scanning technology that will hopefully keep Simon alive for longer. After making your way into the world's emptiest office reception, the game introduces you to the core gameplay loop of exploration and puzzle solving. Once you find the key to enter the most soundproof neurological podcast studio known to man, you converse with the doctor and sit in something that looks like a cross between an experimental blow dryer and the world's most menacing dentist chair. It is here where we suddenly black out and in the blink of an eye emerge in a darkened room, starkly different to the one we were in before. I just want to highlight that the atmospheric sound design here is as wonderful as it is terrifying. The low humming of machinery in the distance, the groaning of the metal walls as they creak under pressure, and the sound of creatures lurking in the darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pathos 2. Before I go on, I want to discuss one of SOMA's arguably weaker elements, that being the gameplay. Similar to Frictional Games' previous entries, the game relies on you to sneak around, solve puzzles, and deal with your own existential dread in your own time. What I find quite interesting was that much like Amnesia, the game doesn't hold your hand when guiding you through the puzzles, and most are fairly straightforward. Unfortunately, however, there are a few that did frustrate me in terms of finding the right item to get into the right place. This is a double-edged sword, as on the one hand, it adds to the sense of helplessness and disorientation as you try to navigate the vacant halls with nothing but your own thoughts running wild. Was that a creature in the corner of my eye? Or was it that undigested bit of beef causing havoc to my senses again? Yes, there's far more gravy than grave in this situation, but if you're truly stumped, or take a wrong turn, then it forces you to violate the greatest gaming taboo, which is to look up a walkthrough on YouTube. While I wasn't overly reliant on this, it did make some of the puzzles rather frustrating when I was doing the right thing, but just not in the way the game wanted it done. Another thing that may prove to be controversial is I did not appreciate the monsters. While I concede that their designs are utterly horrifying, it almost felt unnecessary given the atmosphere built up. Ironically enough, it reminded me of a game that I reviewed with fellow podcaster Jess from the Opinionated Luscious podcast called Firewatch, where you leave your home and camp in the forest of the Wyoming wilderness. While Firewatch has been dubbed as a walking simulator, the game has no physical enemies that run after you and try to slap you on the cheeks. Instead, when it dives into the world of horror, it does so by implying that there's something constantly stalking you, ready to pounce at a moment's notice. SOMA has a similar feeling when you see your first shadow run by the window, realising that you're no longer in Toronto. That being said, if any Canadian Pandalorians want to fact check me and confirm this is indeed what Toronto is like, then I apologise in advance. Jokes aside, the atmospheric horror is enough here, and I genuinely feel like it didn't need several boogeymen to stalk you in each section to be truly terrifying. But as we break free of the room holding us and snatch an omni-tool that'll get us through, we soon learn what we're dealing with. One thing I want to shout out here is the stellar voice acting from the cast. It ranges from your standard fare to delightfully uncomfortable, and I mean that in all the positive ways. Throughout the station you encounter several robots, both friendly and aggressive, who truly believe that they are human. Initially some of these interactions are comical, even going as far as to make fun of the way the player looks. Okay, rude, but there are several that are downright uncomfortable, and if not for the masterful voice acting, wouldn't have been as impactful. Some examples include bloated metallic masses plugged into machines that you need to interact with to proceed. Unfortunately, this means unplugging the machines in order to regain power, and it's heartbreaking to hear an unexpected pleading sound from them, making you realise very quickly that there's more to them than you first expected. I'm still horrified at the moment where, when flipping a switch to activate an electric current, I inadvertently electrocuted a machine that promptly notified me of my mistake by crying out in pain. It was horrifying, but of course, they're just machines, right? They're not real and sentient, are they? As you navigate through the derelict station, you're soon put in touch with a scientist called Catherine Chung, who explains that, much like the busted song Year 3000, we've been to the future and everyone lives underwater. And to all the millennial listeners that got that reference, I appreciate you all. But all joking aside, we learned that the scientist we were talking to all along was nothing more than a brain scan of a former Pathos 2 employee trapped in the machine. Despite this, Simon and Catherine have a somewhat jovial rapport as they descend deeper into the bowels of the facility, uncovering some rather unsettling truths, and some commonality that throws the player through one of the biggest and gut-punching moments of the game. We find out later that the Simon we're playing as is nothing more than a cloned copy of his 2015 self, and by cloned I'm only writing a technicality, as unfortunately this only extends to your mind and personality. Not only is the original Simon long dead, but your mind has been uploaded into the mind of a corpse by the game's somewhat antagonist warden unit, or WoW for short. Owen Wilson would have been proud. The WoW acts as an artificial intelligence that manages all of the computer systems within Pathos 2, with some rather sinister drawbacks. While the WoW was created to preserve human life, it does so to the extreme by fusing the survivors of the facility in a marriage of biomatter and machinery. As a result, those left under the paradoxical protection of the WoW are simultaneously alive but not living. The only thing that matters to this machine machine as its goal in sustaining life, but inadvertently not ensuring any quality to it. Maybe a bit of a cliche to bring up good old Isaac Asimov at this point, but I can't help but think of his 3 laws of robotics. For those of you who need a bit of a refresher, here they are as follows. Number 1, a robot may not injure a human being, or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given to it by a human being, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And finally, number 3, a robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. This is why I hesitate to describe WoW as an antagonist. After all, is it wrong of the machine to carry out what it's been programmed to do? Morally, of course, yes. He's condemning these people to an eternity of imprisonment, which is quite frankly bordering on I have no mouth and I must scream territory, minus the masochism of the machine itself. Ultimately, their dependence on this machine has been their somewhat undoing, causing it to think in binary terms of what it deems as living. Get used to me saying that, by the way, because it is truly terrifying. Going back to Simon for a moment, his reveal threw me through a somewhat existential loop of sorts. As you listen to and read up on the files from his past, you find out that his treatment ended in a fatal failure, and as a result, his mind is used as a historical AI template, which even the game points out is outdated. He is a relic of the past, someone who shouldn't be there yet has been flung so far forward in time, and worse still, he had no say in how this would end up being used nearly a century later. It reminds me of a lot of the way AI has changed 10 years on from when this game released. Before we thought of it as a quirky companion of sorts, something that would either help or hinder us, but somehow things have gotten a lot more sinister, with companies rolling out tools that allow people to create their own videos, podcasts, and even music without a single human word being spoken. As a podcaster myself, I feel quite sick thinking about how easy it is for a machine to copy your very being and decide how it would fashion your words, like a puppeteer would to a marionette. And while it is a little more complex in the context of SOMA, the idea that a piece of you remains out there in the digital realm is unsettling. While other forms of media have tackled this very topic, looking at you, Black Mirror, it raises the question of whether or not the digital reconstruction goes beyond the superficial elements. This in turn leads us to learn of Dr. Chun's pet project, known as the Ark, which would upload the minds of the Pathos 2 workers into a digital box that would then be shot into space, thereby ensuring humanity's survival in some manner. Now, I have my own thoughts on this, but I'll save that till the end. Either way, this becomes your sole mission, to make sure that the Ark is fired into space as soon as possible, all the while avoiding the monsters that the WoW has lurking in the shadows. In true horror fashion, of course, nothing is as easy as it seems, leading to Catherine advising Simon that they need to descend yet again to another part of the structure via a submersible craft called the Dunbat. And before you say it, no, it isn't as easy as booking a ticket and just hopping on. Instead, we find ourselves in a somewhat mini-game of sorts, where we have to use the digital consciousness of former engineer Brandon Wan to convince him to give us the codes to release the Dunbat. It's like convincing a sentient sim to do something, and there's no way of putting back Pandora's pool ladder once they realise something's amiss. Even the game makes a point of how we're essentially killing him over and over again in this simulation, as our attempts to convince him fail constantly. We even go as far as to replicate his love interest Alice Coster, and use that to convince him to give up the codes. It's not like LA Noire where you have a layer of goofiness to separate you from your failed interrogation attempts. It is blatantly obvious what you're doing here. And worst of all, you need it to get to the Ark, which unfortunately becomes futile, as when you reach the Dunbat eventually, it throws the mother of all wobblies and breaks away into the darkness of the ocean, forcing you to find a body that will handle the pressure of the water better. And when you do, oh god, things go from somehow hell to the next layer of hell. After transferring your consciousness, Simon believes that it will just be a simple cut and paste job, whereby he'll leave his old body and go into his new body just like a video game character. Ironic, I know, but as soon as he is copied over, he realises that is exactly what he is, a copy. As you stand over your old body, you have the choice of whether or not to put them out the misery. As horrid as it sounds, this is one of the things I think the game handles really well. Throughout the game you have a choice to end the misery of the Pathos 2 crew, who have been damned into these mechanical miseries. With the ones that are just hulking lumps of metal, it makes it somewhat easier to pull the cord, separating yourself from the other being before you. But as the game goes on, you're faced with more human-looking NPCs, eventually culminating towards meeting the last human on Earth, a Greenlander known as Sarah Lindwall, with Comet Telos wiping out all life on Earth on the surface, and the world doing so in its own way below the sea. It's a sobering moment standing face to face with her, being given a choice that ultimately has no bearing, gameplay or narrative wise. This is purely up to the player, as Sarah asks you about your intentions for the arc, before ultimately requesting that you end her life. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't interesting seeing the discussions that spawned from this. Objectively, the game doesn't give you a right or wrong answer for this. One might argue that the preservation of life remains above all else, so therefore, why shouldn't you allow the WoW to thrive? Would Sarah be able to carry on as the last true human on Earth? Listen, I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong either way here, as this choice is entirely up to the player. There's even an ongoing plot in the background where an AI specialist called Johan Ross continually contacts you in ways that elicit the same horror as a morning Teams meeting. Throughout the game he urges you to kill the WoW before trying to kill you, but in an ironic twist of fate, the bigger fish ends up killing him first, once you decide the end to your new play, much a WoW about nothing. This of course culminates in you running away to launch the arc with Catherine as you make your way to the launch chair, securing yourself and Catherine in place before sending yourself to paradise. Congratulations player, game is over. You can sit back, relax and enjoy an eternity in the arc. At least that's what I would be saying, if not for this.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the Ark. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the Ark. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon at Omicron, just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
This is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the Ark.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the Ark. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survived, that something lives on.
No. Fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine, you lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking Ark.
We are on the Ark, you idiot. I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance.
Fuck! Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?
This ending hit me like a ton of bricks, even though it had been telegraphed that it would happen when we first transferred our consciousness to another body, a 50-50 chance to live in paradise or be trapped in a watery grave forever. And to add insult to injury, the game makes you play as the new Simon and Catherine, walking through the paradise of the Ark as it soars through space. But thanks to his arguably valid breakdown, he loses the only companion that he had down there, doomed forever to remain alone. I spoke before about having thoughts on the arc, and while I'm happy to share them now, I just want to preface that what I'm about to say is purely my opinion, but if you chose other paths through your SOMA journey, then that is also completely valid. But with that said, Simon was ultimately never real, at least not at the start of the game. Instead, we get a copy of a man from 100 years ago, piloting a dead body like some kind of Pacific Rim horror, and yet he still embodies the memories and the feelings of the real Simon, leading to the game's core theme of both free will and by extension the self. We are free to play through the game as any other walking simulator and ignore the supplementary material. We are also free to play in narrative mode, much like I did, to focus on this game's story, rather than what it brought gameplay-wise. But as for what the arc represents, it feels more like a library of what humanity achieved and the people that they used to be. While the consciousnesses within it simulate one's former self, they are ultimately not who they were. But therein lies the philosophical quandary. Must one have a body and mind in order to be sentient? If one were to split their mind up, then who would reign as the ultimate copy? Or does one forfeit that right when the original version dies? This may not be the same people who were uploaded, but again, who are we to play God and dictate who should and shouldn't live? This is then contradicted by the callous yet also objective programming of the WoW, who only wishes to preserve life and not humanity. Two very different things. Life is sacred. It is something so precious that I fear the ones that need to hear that will no doubt ignore it. But what is life? Now, I could go on and list the thoughts of 1,000 theologians, historians and scientists, but none of them would have the answers. Heck, not even I have the answers after playing through this mind-bending experience. I've been on this planet for over 30 years now, and I have met so many wonderful people. I care about every last one of them, and it does admittedly break my heart to think that one day we'll get to a point where it'll all be over. All that will be left of me, hopefully, other than the memories, is this silly little podcast. And if I were to be somehow cloned into an AI machine, I just know it would never be me regardless of how well it mimicked me. Nevertheless, life is what we make it. No matter what happens, it is the somewhat finite nature of it and a mark that we leave that makes it so beautiful. And that's what makes me ponder about SOMA's ending so much. Yes, what defines a human may have been eradicated by forces out with our control in this world, but the tenacity of the human spirit still wages on in the form of the Ark, a time capsule to humanity's tenure on a world no longer there. As a result, it is our responsibility to make as much of the time we have. SOMA is a game that has sat with me for a while now, that much is clear. I never thought that a 10-year-old survival horror game would impact me in the way it did. While its gameplay left a lot to be desired at parts, I can't deny where it shines is in its story. It left me pondering over the implications of what made humanity the way it is, beyond the superficial physical forms. Does one's mind have to be constrained to the body, or would transferring these thoughts and feelings ultimately create something new? SOMA is an utter tour de force of philosophical musings and thought-provoking choices. There is no right or wrong answers in this game, creating a unique experience for each player who dare set foot in Pathos 2. Admittedly, while I maintain that the gameplay isn't SOMA's strongest card to play, it definitely isn't the focal point, and with a narrative mode where you can roam free without fear of being killed off by a monster only highlights this. You're not playing this game for the memorable gameplay, but instead the questions that it leaves behind. One more thing that I want to mention is the supplementary material that SOMA has beyond the game. If you look on Frictional Games' YouTube channel under the Transmissions title, you'll find a live-action SOMA miniseries, as well as shorts by Imagos Films, that document the crew's descent into madness. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect, but good lord is it visceral. It really shows how SOMA doesn't need to use the medium of gameplay as a crutch to tell a compelling story, and while that also raises questions about its impact as solely a game, I still believe that this is one game that you'll need to try out for yourself. But what did you think? Does SOMA still hold up 10 years later, or does it belong at the bottom of the ocean next to Simon and Catherine? Too soon? feel free to reach out and let us know, as we would love to hear what you thought. But as always, thank you all so much for supporting the show. If you'd like to listen to more episodes from ourselves, then you can check us out over on our website, chatsunami.com, as well as all good podcast apps. Huge shout out to our Pandalorian patrons, Robotic Battle Toaster, Ghostie, and Cryptic1991. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. And if you would like access to exclusive episodes, early access, commentary tracks, and so much more, then you can check us out on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Chatsunami. This podcast is a proud member of the Podpack Collective. For more information, check us out at our Twitter/X page, Podpack Collect. But as always, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated. Well, not pathos too hydrated, but you know what I mean.